Hi. Welcome to Clear the Doom. JP is muted, but we will hear his voice in a moment, and he will clear the doom of the silence.
So excited to clear the doom.
Yay! Welcome.
Let us clear this doom.
Let's
Nice
clear
hair,
it.
JP. Looks
Thank you.
fresh.
Thank you. It's about a week or two old. Yeah.
The upkeep is just. I mean, I'm in awe.
Upkeep is real.
Yeah, it's real. Do you have a local
I was just gonna ask.
Oh no. I'd pay somebody to do this. Tanya Jost in Burbank. She's fabulous. She also does the hair of Tara Sands and Gray Drake. Yeah, all wonderful
stylist to the stars.
colorfully haired people. Yeah. How we all doing today? What's going on?
Just battling the multiple retrogrades that are supposedly going on. 9. I've seen it memed quite a bit.
Oh wow. I mean, Mercury's the only one that I know that retrogrades. Is it something else?
Apparently they can all back that thing up if they want to. But so we're in it. There's weird vibes and we're just rolling with it.
I'm feeling
so
that.
To have you and your colorful hair because it just suits the mood today.
Yeah.
Julia, tell JP a little bit about like what the impetus
what this is.
Yeah, why am I here?
Why am I here? So we wanted to get on Twitch and make it easy for people to reach us, just start talking about things. Hari and I, whenever we talk, we get into these long, crazy convos that lead into 20 different directions. And we're like, we should let people hear these crazy conversations about imposter syndrome and
I'm pasta syndrome
and things like that. So we started chatting on here, just us, and then we started inviting people to come chat with us. And recently we had Edward Hong on, and we were talking about the PGM violist and all the wonderful work they're doing with that. And he said, you know who you should have on here? You should have Queer Vox and JP. And I'm like, well, we might.
It's a shame we don't know each other.
Is that a joke? You guys do know each other? Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's how we got connected to Edward, right?
Yeah.
Great. All right. I was a little out of the loop on that one. So the joke went right over my head.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, Edward's amazing.
You guys are both doing amazing things in these spheres of inclusion, and it's really exciting. And we're just like these like allies, like whatever way we can amplify what you guys are doing is so exciting, and I get like deeply fulfilled by it. And we talk this whole thing is just talking about mindset, like how do we approach working in competitive industries and make sure that we feel, like full human beings at the same time, and not just only work and only the way that work makes us feel, because so much of the time it's a crazy roller coaster. And so a big part of what makes me feel good is working with somebody like Julia, and then the things that we get to do to help the amazing initiatives that you do and Edward does and anything like that just like makes me feel like, okay, this isn't as selfish of a pursuit as I feel it can be a lot of the time.
Sure.
Helping other people get into this selfish pursuit.
But JP, why don't you start by telling us just a little bit about what made you want to start Queer Vox and what it is and where people can find it, and
yeah, all the things. So I started Queer Vox back in January of this year, after having some conversations with a bunch of different friends who are in the industry, and all of the conversations basically boiled down to the frustration of on the positive side, there is a rise in queer roles in animation and interactive titles, which cool, but there isn't the authentic casting that's kind of going along with it. And there's an expression of frustration on the part of casting that it's like, well, I don't even know where to find these people. And, I think on some level that's true because they're not, queer, especially when we're talking about gender nonconforming talent, like, trans and non-binary and genderqueer talent. There isn't a ton of them that are represented at, the big agencies that are union, that are trained in voiceover. Like, we're seeing a rising number of people in on camera, but up until now, there really hasn't been the space for queer and trans talent in voiceover. So it's like, well, why would they be here? Um, but there are a bunch of LGBTQIA plus folks working in voiceover. It just might not be union. It might be anime. It might be whatever. And so I thought what it feels like we need is a training ground for people to have the opportunity, if they are not currently working in voiceover, or if they are currently working in voiceover but they want to break into, mainstream animation and video games, to offer them some type of training and exposure to be able to get out there, and so that casting doesn't have that like, "Oh, I don't know where these people are. Here, right here, there they are. Um, so I just started it as a class. It was just going to be a little, because I've taught for animation for about 4 years. And so I was just going to teach, just kind of a version of my workshop, pay what you can, because the last thing I wanted to add to these people's burden was financial, responsibility. So, um, and I did an application process partially just so I could get a sense of where they were at and if, and what their potential level was, but more than that, just to make sure like y'all are queer, right? Um, and we got over 200 applications, and suddenly this went from, oh, I'm just going to have a little 8-person class and see where it goes from there, to being like, oh, I need to have like a community. Um, so I signed on my friend and colleague, Sarah Elmale, who is the vice principal of Queer Vox, and she became my co-teacher. And our class is sort of like, we have a session where we talk about animation, we have a session where we talk about video games, but for the most part, it's less about like being a be all and end all voiceover educational tool, and more like, here is how to navigate voiceover as a queer person and the issues that will come up for you, whether you're, and that's, and it's across the board. I mean, certainly there may be more issues that come up if you're trans or non-binary, but there's also issues for people who are, just queer, gay, lesbian, like, especially if they have non-traditional voices, or and all of that. So there is a lot of that navigation. um so we try to address that, and then born out of that class, we now have a Discord community that's vibrant and buzzing. We do panels with these lovely people, um and we also do private industry roundtables where we have amazing conversations between casting and agents and developers and writers, along with QueerVox members, to kind of just take apart these issues and talk about like some possible solutions, and or at the very least how we can move the needle towards diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Yeah, and we're
I'm
queervox.org.
surprised and fascinated that this all started so recently, because I guess, in the whirlwind of getting wrapped up with helping you guys with what you do, I just like sort of, I think I took in the story a little bit, but I was also sort of overwhelmed by like the scale of everything we were taking on. And I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, we're gonna like, these trans people are gonna, be, like, I was like, just trying to get like the terms and make sure I wasn't like being part of the problem. Like, I had so much to take in, but it's like really crazy how much you've done in just such a short amount of time. It's, what do you think, was it like the industry being ready for it? Was people looking for these, like this kind of support?
I mean, I think it's a combination. It's a perfect storm. Like, yeah, the industry is ready, in part. And I think also there was just a really hungry desire from a lot of people. And I mean, the students that we have vary from the people who are right on the precipice, who might have been working for years in dubbing and just like never really thought there was a place for them in mainstream animation and video games, who are like, oh, I maybe now. Okay, cool. Versus, the people who are like, I love voiceover. I've never done it. I've never acted, but this feels like this might be a possibility. And then stewarding those people that have potential, to try to get into this career. Which, in part thanks to the pandemic, people can now do from anywhere in the country.
I was
So
just gonna ask that actually. What do you know, like, of your community? What percentage is in LA versus elsewhere? LA, New York versus
I
elsewhere?
I don't have a specific breakdown, but I would say it's funny. We just did a massive community survey to try to like get ideas from like what people want, where we're going from here, and all of that. You'd think I would have asked them, "Where are you? Where do you live?"
There.
Hmm. I will say I'd say it's probably skewed more people not in California. I'd say it's probably like 75-25 if I had to guess. A lot of them are talking about, I mean, like
Of course, yeah.
the chats are buzzing right now about like, I'm moving in the next 6 months. I'm moving tomorrow. I'm moving next year. Like everybody wants to come to LA, which have fun. It's on fire.
I just got in a huge Twitter war
I
about
was just gonna
this
say, Hari, this is
yesterday.
probably a good time to, like, we were just talking about access and the fact that, I'm sure part of this is that it was during a pandemic and you're all connecting with these people virtually versus trying to do something in person. So you can reach 200 people instead of reaching 20 and just the people within LA. And that alone is proof of what a gatekeep LA has been for access for underrepresented talent on all sides of the glass and all media types. So Hari just got into a Twitter battle about the same thing.
Not necessarily because they're sitting there, these greedy white overlords going, oh, if you can't come, you can't get in. But, for their own convenience and for the convenience of the industry, which, as we've seen with the IATSE stories and now film festival stories of a lot of my friends who are on the film festival circuit, there's a couple of new accounts that have cropped up that are like, Sundance was here going, yay, we support IATSE, and Sundance's employees were like, do you? Because we work 16-hour days for 4 months straight, and we get something called like the festival flu afterwards because your body literally can't recover. And it's a joke that they all experience this every year. And these people are like gypsies that travel around from fest to fest, getting paid like livable wages, and it's just crazy. So anyway, everything's changing because of the convenience level changing, which is great. But I was like witness to on Twitter this, veteran TV writer sort of saying, if you want to be in TV and you want to write in writers' rooms, you need to be in LA, 1000%. And that's her experience. That's fine. But when a Black creator chimed in saying, actually, I've been staffed on 2 shows this year and I don't live in LA. And, that was just her experience. This woman completely negated it repeatedly over and over again because we all have imposter syndrome. And even this lady who has a million credits in TV writing, most of which from the 1970s and 80s, felt slightly threatened when her advice got challenged, but she needed to step outside of herself and realize this isn't about her. And there was a amazing Black writer who was trying to encourage her community to know that you don't need all the money to pay for some overpriced LA apartment while you get your scripts together, your specs and your pilots and all of these things. Being here and trying to write that, I can tell you right now, I have a draft that I am supposed to be on at this exact moment. And, we do our jobs, we have to. But it's just interesting watching the veteran kind of discredit this gal and then say, well, is it a comedy, the show you're on? Because a writer's room needs to be in person. They're going to go back. And she was like, yeah, it's woke on Hulu and it's a comedy. And it's like, this person doesn't even know what shows are out right now.
Right.
And was so quick to discount her experience. So anyway, I joined in just to be like, hey, new times, things are changing. I'm excited about the change. We'll see what happens. Definitely people should move when the town calls. This is always I believe.
Yeah.
But build your career somewhere else. That's fine. Start it out. Get it going.
I mean, it's kind of like the old adage, I used to be work in college admissions, and um for a university I shall not name, but is very reputable and very expensive. And and I would tell people on the sly and just be like, look, if you want to spend a couple years at community college and not spend a bajillion dollars just getting your general education requirements out of the way so that you can get the meat of your degree at this institution and not be saddled with a ton of debt, go do it.
So smart, so real, so helpful. Like,
yeah, like, a lot of, and I mean, I think that's one of the lessons we try to kind of create in Queer Vox is, yes, there is a classic narrative about how success is won in this industry, but it isn't everybody's narrative. Everybody's story is going to be a little bit different, and some people's story is going to be a lot different. And especially when we're talking about people, for instance, non-binary folks, or maybe like a trans masculine individual whose voice does sound particularly feminine, and it just is going to, there's that sense of like, well, shit, am I going to be cast as any male roles? Am I ever going to book something? And it's like, look, are you necessarily going to find success in the traditional sense where all of a sudden, Cartoon Network's going to come a knocking and you're going to be booking everything and suddenly be a Looney Tunes character? Maybe not. But there's all sorts of different types of success in voiceover as long as you're open to multiple possibilities. I mean, like when I started my acting career, I had a very narrow idea of what I was going to do. Like it was on camera. It was like I'm going to do, I think I kind of wanted the career of Nathan Lane or something like that. Like
like
that's
who
sort
do
of
you
what
want to be?
I was like, I want to be him. And it didn't go that way at all. And I think, what I was once I was able to sort of let go what was not going to be and embrace what would be and could be equally positive, if not better, then you start to open things up. But, you know, it's not only convincing talent of that it's like your journey has many different options, but also telling the people who have found it in other ways that it's like this is just as valid, you know. In the
Yeah,
same
and
ways
I
that
mean,
we sometimes have to convince people like, look, these people who are booking like, 20 dubbing projects a year, their success is just as valid as you who's like working two, mainstream animation projects a year. It's the same.
there are so many ways to be a working actor. There are so many ways to feel success. And a lot of times people don't realize that actually the success that they might have sought their whole life would not actually make them happy were it their reality. Being famous is its own whole mishigas, even being insta famous and having like tons and tons of people who feel an ownership over your opinions and your thoughts and your feelings might not
Mhm.
be your goal. And does that mean you're not a successful actor if you don't achieve those levels? Like, I don't think so. And I mean, but I am excited for the more, how would you say? I mean, I would just say different, I guess, the
Mhm.
different range of actors to start to be, because it's boring. The same is so boring, and we've been fed it for so long. So yeah,
Yeah.
if they wind up becoming the ones who are booking all the roles, like I'd be here for it, and I'd be excited because we'd suddenly hear something a little bit different in our cartoons or in our.
Yeah. I mean, if the point of view that I always throw to, because I'm a nerd and I'm a huge MCU person, is like, you know, when going to see a movie like Black Panther or going to see a movie like Shang-Chi that comes from a authentic cultural perspective, it is a breath of fresh air, to a cis white person who just sees, like doesn't um it is used to just seeing mainstream American stuff that is predominantly white. When you see this, it's like, oh wow, this is a whole new viewpoint. This is a whole new lens that I'm not accustomed looking through, and it is refreshing. And I think I know that so many people get really nervous about, like, well, is this going to be accepted worldwide? Is this going to be mainstream? Is this going, is this going to make its money back? Is it going to be too niche? And there's so many projects out right now. I mean, there's uh so many streaming services, so many projects on each one, so many films that are being shown on so many different platforms, that the idea, everything is niche right now. Everything,
Mhm.
like network TV is barely getting an audience anymore. It's because it's just, everybody is just siloed in all these little places finding their own little thing. So I think it behooves people to be riskier and to try those things that might not be super mainstream. The days of having a show that's going to like hit four corners and be like the Seinfeld or whatever,
Mhm.
I don't know if those days are with us anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah. What did JP, what was like can you tell us a little bit about your career trajectory and how it went from being Nathan Lane to
Yeah.
this badass
I,
boss baby with the colorful hair running
Thanks.
Hollywood? How to live?
I mean, it's, the short version is essentially, I went to school in DC. I decided that I wanted to have a film career, so I transferred out to USC for the remainder of my career. Um, Started working grocery delivery and, try to pound the pavement and get it auditions. But along the way, you know, I I had a perception. I'm not one of those people that I grew up being like, I'm going to be a voiceover actor.
Mhm.
I, Mine was a little different, kind of in that Nathan Lane regard, in that I was under the impression that the only way I could be a voiceover actor is if I was famous.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I've got to get on camera famous in order to be able to do that. Um, so I kind of put pursuing it out of my head because I was like, we're putting the cart before the horse here. Let's deal with the horse.
Mhm.
Um, so that was sort of my process going through college. But I knew people who were studying animation, and I was doing voiceover projects for them, and they were really jazzed with what I was doing. Their classmates were, their professors were, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So finally, somebody was like, look, you just need to pursue this. You probably need to talk to Kelly Ward, who was one of my professors at USC, but also, as you guys know, was a director of animation. And so I talked to him, and he was like, okay, I need you to study with this person, this person, this person. And one of them was Bob Bergen, who became my mentor. And studying with Bob, and through Bob, I got my agent. And as I was kind of doing the simultaneous thing, pursuing both on camera and voiceover, um, when you're I don't want to say starving actor, but when you're a blue collar actor who's like, working, doing temp work or grocery delivery or whatever, and you have those limited coins to be able to put toward your career, you kind of have to make those choices. And I just started putting more and more towards voiceover because that seemed to be the place where I was getting the best feedback. I was booking things occasionally. And so, slowly my on-camera career just like faded off until my manager was just like, "Are you doing this or not?" And I'm like, "You know what? I'm not. Bye."
And that
Um,
will come back to you in any organic way if it needs to at some point. If somebody, friend of yours sells a show, you could be a series regular. That's the cool thing about right now. Like, if it, on camera is like,
He's like, no, I'm good.
I mean,
no, it's funny because I was actually having this discussion with one of my boss baby bosses.
mhm.
Um, we were just chatting, and he was like, "So you don't want to do it at all? Like at all? Like, isn't there a part of you that still does?" I'm like, "No,
Really?
actually."
Even if you just
Like,
were like doing something fun with your friends?
well, that's the thing. If somebody came to me and was like, "We have this perfect part for you, no audition necessary, you just
Yeah.
need to show up and do the thing," I would do it. I don't. I still don't. I still wouldn't be like excited about it though.
Oh, we're gonna
Really?
get
And
to
I
the
th-
geek
That's
cat
like the
show.
only way I want to do it anymore. I'm just like, if you look at like, I mean, I love being in my friends' movies. I love acting. I love it so much. I love being on set. It's so much fun. But I really just want to do it with my friends. I don't really
I'll
want to
tell you this
beg
little story
someone
though.
to.
My on-camera experience was eh. I did two on-camera roles. One was the show Ringer, which was with Sarah Michelle Gellar. It had like what, 6 episodes before it was canceled. Um, and I played a party planner. Um, and it was fun, and she was nice. Everybody was nice, you know. Um, but my second gig was The Real Husbands of Hollywood on BET. Um, and I was playing, like, you know, the singing telegram person from Clue, like with the bellhop outfit. That was me. I was wearing the bellhop outfit, and I came to do a singing telegram on the show. And I knew I was the white gag, like all good, fine,
Right.
you know, like sure. But I was also the queer gag. Like I knew that as well, and that's the part that I was a little like, "Eh, eh." um, and you know, and I was just sitting around. I didn't really have anybody to talk to, like, you know, because the only people that were really on the show were like the main stars, and they were like stars, like JB Schmoo. I always say Schmoove. It's like it's not that. It's JB
Move. Just
Schmoove.
move.
Like JB, who actually was the one person that was like, "Hey man, how you doing? You doing okay?" I'm like,
He's
"I'm doing fine, thank you." Um, but you know, like they all had their things going on their phones, talking to their assistants and all of that stuff. And I think there were two old ladies who were playing like extras that would just like walk by the house at one point, and they were like, they were honestly more industry than the lead guys. Like they were on the phones being like, "I don't know, where are you going to buy it?" It's just like, oh my God, you look like my mom, just like, you know, talking like people from Entourage. But
The old
I,
entourage yentas.
yeah, and I was just like, I didn't feel like I fit, and you know, so I spent most of my time at craft services, and I'm like, okay, this is how this is all going to play out. If I do this for 30 years, I'm going to get huge because I'm just going to stand.
M&Ms all
I'm
day.
just going to. Oh no, for me it's those. It's the circus cookies. It's the pink and the
Oh,
white.
frosted pink white. Oh, with sprinkles.
Because you know every reputable craft services table has those. It's
Yeah,
almost like the badge of like, oh, we're for real.
we know what we're doing here.
And I just got, and I'm like,
Honestly, those are like the depression wafers. That's like the IATSE thing. They're like, we feed you craft services. This is not a perk of the job. This is to keep you on sugar and caffeine and going so we can destroy you. Like if you eat enough of those circus cookies, it just breaks down all of your
yeah,
self-respect and will to live.
yeah. I was like, I'll be addicted to sugar. I'll be huge. I'll have no teeth. I'll be, you know, I'll just be a mess. Like so. Yeah, I just never felt like I fit on set. And I also was always so self-conscious of like what I was doing with my body, and am I being too effeminate? Am I being too much? And blah blah blah. I never have that problem with my voice
Yeah.
because I know how to control it within an inch of its life.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I mean, that's how that sort of played out for me. And so when I was talking to people, like when I get students who are like, I think, is it possible to do both? I'm like, it totally is. Just two caveats to that. One, understand that both of them will ask for 100%, and if you want to do both successfully, they're going to get each are going to get 75, and that has to be okay. And um, what was the other thing? Oh, and then I also give the caveat that like this is my experience with it,
Right.
and it is personal to me, partially because I'm queer, partially because I have body issues about, you know, how I move and all of that. And, you know, and also I had like I always at the back of everything else, I always wanted voiceover to be the number one thing. So, you know, this was just always the way it was supposed to go for me. But, you know, I know plenty of people, like the one I always think of is like Sumali Montano, who's got an amazing career.
I just wrote her down like, oh, we got to get her on.
Yeah, like she does lots of on camera and she does lots of voiceover.
Yeah.
At no point would I ever say that she is exclusively one or the other,
Mm.
but I think she gives like, you know, she spreads the wealth of her talent evenly between both in an incredible way. But um I think a lot of people try to get burned out with especially like if not just voiceover and on camera, but it's like, I need to do theater, I need to do film, I need to do TV, I need to take all the improv classes, I need to do, it's like, whoa, like dabble in each of those to see what you love and then focus a little bit, because it's hard to, everybody is spreading themselves so thin trying to do everything all at once.
Well, the industry is very much demanding that of us. And I think it's really frustrating. Like, I am quintessential Jill of all trades, Jack of all trades. We don't need to gender them. It's the J of all trades, but like I really do it all because I had to, and because my career was not going anywhere unless I made things. Like I had no body of work, and I had to build a body of work, and it has served me very, very well. And I'm very grateful to myself for doing that, and for saying I'm weird, the industry doesn't know where to put me. I will show them. I will make it clear to them how I can, what I can bring to the table. But
that's just it's creating your own work.
Exactly. And I think that's what you did. Like what I really want actors to do a lot is to stop and listen to what's really working. And then, like you said, lean in and focus into that instead of just forcing something and just trying to drill it. Because yes, we say, don't give up, be resilient, take the rejection and keep going. But at some point, listen to what parts of your career are calling to you and saying, we want you over here, and stop trying to force the ones that aren't.
Right. And also finding, my career really changed I because I'm a Zennial, and I kind of like, my career was sort of happening as YouTube was sort of becoming a thing, like just when it launched, so I wasn't getting started when like content creation was huge. It was just starting to be a thing.
Right.
And people were buzzing about like, oh, you could maybe do this or whatever. So I dipped my toe in sort of like weird ways. And one of the things that I did early on, as an on-camera actor, was this thing that I called the trading card project, which was I invented roles for 6 different TV programs, and I filmed little shorts of me as those characters in those TV programs, just wrote the script, created it all myself, and then turned them into individual trading cards and then sent them to casting and being like, here, collect them all.
Oh my God, that's so clever.
And it was fun, and it was super fun. And, and of the 6 shows, the 6 shows were The Office, Heroes, Ugly Betty, House, and I think CSI. And I instantly knew, like, Ugly Betty and The Office I had a blast with. I hated doing the other ones. Like, especially House. Like, and I wrote those scripts. Like, I was writing them tailor-made for me, and I hated doing them. And and that was a learning experience in terms of like, okay, I'm not a drama person. I can play it. I can play it and I enjoy it. And I love when comedy has those dramatic moments, but comedy person, like I want to make people laugh. I want to bring people joy. I like to get the joke, and that was a project that I specifically did, not out of passion, not out of love of the art, but just because I was desperate to like get attention and find a new way in. And it didn't really, I mean, it was a fun idea, but I don't think I really pushed it in the right way. And it didn't really garner me, I got maybe 2 casting directors that called and were like, that was cool. And that was sort of it.
Yeah, but it gives you a sense now of like,
right.
What speaks to me when I create, like just creating something for yourself, even if it doesn't wind up winning the Sundance, like
exactly.
It was a good process.
So then a few years later, also when I was sort of in a lull, I wrote a solo show about, I'm adopted. So I wrote a solo show about my adopted mom and also my birth mother, who I've known for about 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't write it because I wanted to get people, because I was like, oh, this is going to be my new scheme. This is going to be how it was like, I need some creative fulfillment. I need to fall in love with what I do a little bit again. And this is a love letter that I've wanted to write for forever. So let me do for me and for them. And if nobody else sees it or cares about it except just the three of us, all good. And coming at it from that perspective, because it was a passionate project for me, because it was something that was important to me, yeah, once it was out there and I started promoting it and people liked it and it started winning awards, then it was like, okay, cool. So, I think it's so important to find that thing that people are passionate about, whether it is if it's creating a web series, then goddamn it, create that web series. But if it's
Yeah.
not, don't create a web
Don't
series
do it.
because you think
Yeah.
it's going to make somebody happy. Make you happy first, whether it's a solo show or a play with friends or a web series or a chair. Like that's sort of where it transitioned for me. Like people are like, when's the next solo show? When's the next solo show? And I'm like, I kind of did what I wanted to do with it. If another one comes to mind that I really feel like I want to do, great. But the thing that came to me next was Nerds Vote. And then the thing after that was Queer Vox. And it became about like, giving back and charitable involvement. And that's my passion now. So, and yeah, do people notice me because of those things? Do I book a couple extra jobs because of those things? Sure. But that's not the point. The point is that because the one thing that I think people don't talk about when they're actors for a long time is you can start to feel like you're somebody else's puppet, that you are the instrument of somebody else's story, not your own. So I think it's incumbent upon all of us to find, how do I tell my own story? Still act, still do my thing, but find those venues to be able to tell your own story through volunteer work, through organizations, through things you write or create, so that it replenishes you and it keeps all of that moving and it doesn't start to feel like I'm just a tool, you know.
One thing I wanted to say, going back to you guys kind of talking about how we're expecting actors to kind of do everything now and kind of finding the areas you want to focus on and train. I think I've been learning a lot more about the differences, especially recently, between what casting looks for from film and TV versus what we for games are looking for versus what animation is looking for. And there are absolutely like differences among those things. But as someone who focuses on the future, it's really hard for me to be advising people to look at those things as separate, because I feel like every year they're becoming more and more one.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the gatekeepers currently are still the same, I think that is evolving and changing. And so I hope that lots of things will be broken in that process. Like I started casting with never having done it with anybody else before, so I don't have any kind of training on it, but I also don't have any this is how it should be done. And I always like to say, like, I like knocking down walls and finding needles in haystacks. And it's like, I'm not part of CSA because they don't let game casting directors be part of CSA, but they're actually doing a whole thing with the union right now on getting into games, but they still won't recognize casting directors from games in their association. So it's convenient.
Mm-hmm.
All that to say, if I just saw recently, like Neil Druckmann is actually directing the HBO series for The Last of Us.
Wow.
He's the creative director and creator of The Last of Us. So it makes sense that he would be doing that.
Right over.
But we've never let them do that in the past, right? So it is happening. Those people are starting to take those jobs and starting to get those. And so all that to say, I do think actors will be asked to do more in different media more and more as we go on, but hopefully what we're looking for won't be so different, and that, at the end of the day, it boils down to an actor who authentically can get in touch with their emotions and create and be collaborative and kind and fun to work with.
Yeah, because I think, the core basic, when people take my class or really take any voiceover class, it's like, we're not an acting class. You like study acting, study scene work and everything outside of what you're doing here, because all we're doing, we're a vocational technical proficiency class. Like we're taking your acting training and just being like, okay, now here's like, this is your distance from a mic. These are the things that you have to consider. These are the levels that like, you know, if you're a theater person, you can bring it down a touch. If you're an on-camera person, you need to bring it up a little more than a touch, you know, like to kind of find the level. But it's all balancing.
Mhm.
The acting core is all the same, no matter what medium you're working in, whether it be theater of, you know, 10,000 people, or whether it's, you know, the subtlety of on-camera acting. It all starts in the same spot. So yeah, and to your earlier point, like, I mean, shit, Netflix just bought a video game studio, so yeah, everything is converging. And I hopefully the one thing that I hope is as we go with labor relations of all kinds for all
Yes.
people is that we work towards lifting everybody as opposed to lowest common denominator, and that this convergence leads to everybody getting paid garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I
Agreed.
love that you have this attitude about everything. You're very present, JP, which I like. It gives me it inspires me to stay with what is, not what was, because like, you know, I like how you're not harping on the fact that like you got a really raw deal. That was really messed up. Like your experience in on camera should not have been that way. There are
Oh,
many people on this earth who look, move, walk, are all these things, and we could have had representatives of that who were honest and not like stereotype caricatures. But that was a hard time to be doing what you're doing, and like I think it's cool that you don't really, you know,
yeah, I mean,
dwell on that.
yeah, I mean, you know, it's kind of like stay at the party you feel welcome at, you know. Like I always think of, so back in the day when I was young and popular,
I
and
wish I knew you then.
oh, I know, right? You know, there was always like that Saturday that would be like 2 weekends before Christmas, where there would be like we would call it the night of 1,000 parties, where it's like, all right, we have 10 places to get to between 7 and midnight, so like, let's go, you know. And
God, I wish I could have been
yeah, and the thing that you slowly realize as you transition from your 20s to your 30s and eventually your 40s is there are no parties in your 40s because everybody has kids. Um, but is that there are those parties that you don't need to be there. Nobody knows that you showed up. Nobody knows that you're leaving. It's not a big deal. So the only reason to stay there is if you're having fun and you feel comfortable. If you don't go or don't stay, you know. And for me, on camera was the party that I showed up to, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm good here. I'm gonna go to another party," and I did.
I love
So
that. I'm gonna,
yeah.
you know, I'm gonna be like telling people that like this one of these anecdotes that's just gonna get tossed forever. Thank
I
you.
will. There's a, you know, I try to be humble on a lot of things, but the one thing that I know I'm good at is metaphor. So like,
Yeah, you
I,
really
I
turned that
do
one
think
out.
that would be a really good title for your autobiography. Is like stay at the party you want
stay
to
at the party
stay.
you feel. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you should do that.
We'll see.
So really quick, I just want to make sure if anyone watching on Twitch has any questions for JP, we give them some time to ask as well. So think of things you might want to know from JP. And Julia, I was thinking about your singing telegram story.
Oh my
And
gosh, should I tell JP
Julia
this?
has a really
What?
good telegram story because
Were you giving it or were you receiving it?
it's so funny that you said the singing
Traumatized.
telegram thing, because Julia and I had this conversation where I was like, singing telegrams are not a thing. They were invented by movies in the like 70s just as a way to get a weirdo to your house. And she's like, no, New York City, it happened. It was real. So she has the story.
So I have a very real fear of clowns, and it comes from two places. And one is a singing telegram, and the other is Dumbo, because the clowns were super drunk on Dumbo and so mean to him, and I just never forgot that. But when I was probably 10, maybe between 10 and 12, and I have a little brother who's like 9 years younger. And an aunt sent a singing telegram to our house for my little brother's like 3rd birthday. And he showed up at a New York City, like Manhattan apartment. And he basically looked like a guy that would have been working on my car potentially. And he was like very
part-time mechanic.
scrubbily dressed and was like, is there somewhere I can change? And so I think I was with like a babysitter or something. I don't even think my parents were home. And so we like took him, we showed him where the bathroom was, and he comes out full clown outfit, face, makeup, everything, and does like a happy birthday dance. And then the whole time, my little brother and I are like cowering in the corner, basically in tears. And then he proceeds to go back into the bathroom, change, except leave the face paint on and leave.
Nope.
And this is why we need Yelp. We need it. We complain about it, but it's important.
Oh, I mean, I absolutely feel you, Julia. Like, I mean, for me, it was between it and Attack of the Killer Clowns or Killer Clowns from Mars or whatever it was, ruined me on clowns. And my fiance actually, because he's a horrible human being, he had a friend in college. They are still best friends to this day. This has a happy ending. And she was mortally terrified of clowns, like brutally terrified of clowns. And he lived downstairs from her in the dorm and has this, we still actually have it. And if I had a mind, I would just burn the damn thing, but I know he'd be upset. This hideous clown mask, like terrifying clown mask with like bedraggled, like curly red hair. It's hideous. So, it was a dorm. I think it was like a freshman dorm. And of course, kids being kids, every once in a while, somebody would like, trip the power or something like that so that all the lights would go off. And anytime the power went out, she could hear his closet door slam and him running up the stairs to terrify her with the clown mask. Just horrible.
You got a good one, JP.
Oh yeah, and he would sneak into her room and like leave the clown mask on her pillow or like just like horrible. The happy ending to it is like somehow, even though she's still pretty scared of clowns, she now works as a stage manager for Cirque du Soleil.
Stop.
That's hilarious.
So
talk about confronting your fears.
I know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
My sister used to torture her college roommate who slept with a lamb chop doll. She used to steal it and then like write suicide notes and like hang her from trees and stuff like that. It was she tortured her with it.
Oh, that is rough.
It was rough.
That's
but
unresolved.
they're still best friends.
Well, hey.
Everybody knows the spirit things
exactly.
are
We do have a question for JP.
Okay.
What's something you know now that you wish you could tell your younger self?
I know what it is, but I always have to find the words to phrase it. I think there's a happy balance between shepherding people who don't understand you along and not compromising who you are as a person. And I think I pendulumed hard from one to the other a lot. Like it was either like, F you, I'm here, I'm queer, deal with it. Or like absolute shame and, devastation that I wasn't what people wanted me to be. And I think that there's a balance in the middle where, you can be respectful and understand that there's some information that is completely foreign to people that, sometimes they need a little information about and a little time to digest with love. And there's also, at the same time, but I am not compromising who I am, and nor am I negating who I am for your comfort. I wish I had learned that earlier. Yeah, that'd be the thing.
That's one of those ones that just feels like you have to have years of wisdom to even kind of metabolize.
Or you could mentors to teach you that.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to let you know what the right instances are to kind of interject those things, because sometimes you can go the other way and you can just be like, all of a sudden, like everything, you're a hammer and everything's a nail, and you need to just like, no, yeah, that middle ground. That's great. Do we have another question?
We do. What has it been like to help people as a demo producer and help them craft their animation demos?
Life fulfilling. No, no, it's great. I don't even remember how I fell into this, but yeah, I think that one of the things that I love about demo production is because I write all the copy, it gives me a chance to just sort of like almost like do my morning pages, like just sort of like, get out all of my like, interesting little creative ideas in bite-sized little pieces. Um, yeah, I think that's super fun. And also, really trying to, because there's that I think when I started doing demos, there was that sort of set idea of like, okay, you need this voice, this voice, this voice, this voice, to make a solid demo. But the truth is like you just need to highlight all of the great voices that an individual can do. And so I think that's the fun part, is like finding out like what can you unlock? What are all of those characters that you have within you, and how can I help to bring those to life? So that's fun.
Do people usually give you like, do they come in with their roster of, or do you sometimes say, how's your old person? Can we hear that, or just try to pull different possibilities out of them if they didn't have that?
It kind of depends where somebody's at. Like if somebody walks in and is like, here's 15 voices, I'll look through them and and be like, well, these are kind of similar, so maybe we can get rid of one or the other right now. And maybe like, have you thought about doing one of these? Usually the one that I have to remind people of is like, how about you? How about your own voice? That's the big, or how about more than one variation on very close to your own voice, as opposed to one clip that sounds like you and then everything else is, I'm a crazy old person, like way far away from your own voice. Yeah. But rare is the occasion. Like I think when I started doing demos, I was trying to, as I was saying before, sort of superimpose like, what about a Southern person? What about what about this? What about that? What about a pirate? Like all of that. And not everybody can do those, and not everybody needs them, you know. So I think I expect people to come in with at least 10 characters that they want to showcase, because if they don't know the characters that they can showcase and they want to make a demo, it's like you might have a little more work to do. So
right. They're early for demo making.
Yeah.
It's something you want to do when especially since it's a resource you pay for.
Yeah. And I do, there are people that like, I don't think I've ever actually had to be like not doing a demo, but I have had the conversation with people that are like, look, from what you've given me, this is where I evaluate you are in your journey. Like, if you want to make a demo, cool, but I just want to give you the caveat that I think that you might need a little more variety, or you might need to work on like the peaks and valleys, because I'll direct you, but like at the end of the day, it's my job to showcase you at your best. It's not my job to make you better than you are.
Exactly, because you're going to get a job you're not going to keep.
Right.
Or an audition you won't book like thousands of them. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess one of the key things that I'm excited to have you on here is because a lot of what we do is sort of behind the scenes, but I think it's just really cool to like let people know that we are involved in these active conversations with particularly the games industry. There are companies who want to do better, and like they have been coming to us, and then we set up a talk behind the scenes with some of JP's students, and that it's this amazing, frank, safe space where everybody feels safe to possibly say the wrong thing, but also be encouraged to learn, how to be better at their job, how to be better, how to make their environment more welcoming to people of all different stripes. And I think it's really cool that as soon as we started doing it, I get now asked all the time, I heard this happen. How do I get into the next one? And it's very encouraging. And it kind of, when sometimes all we see is the combative online outrage, fighting, we're not as privy to the fact that like many people are trying their best to not only diversify, but to make it like a good experience for people. And I'm so glad that we've been able to help you with any of those conversations. Oh, you're
muted.
Sorry, the dog was barking. I wanted to mute that. Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying about myself earlier. Like, it is about trying to find the balance between, helping people and informing people and trying to move the needle with them. And also at the same time, encouraging our students to be as unabashedly themselves as they dare. So, because authenticity is the name of the game,
It sure is.
And I think I'm trying, a part of our work is trying to push it so that it's it's a habit, it's not a trend.
Well, it's working. I've had several meetings this week alone with people who have been in some of the sessions and the webinars and the things, and countless people are learning and bringing those lessons into their work environment and encouraging others. And I've heard it like multiple times now. So it's really exciting to be able to
there's a ripple effect for
sure. Yeah. Because we are moving it.
I've even in my own life been able to sort of like implement some of the things that I've learned from these people who are very, very brave to talk about, times when someone wasn't so aware or helpful. And I was just at a retreat, which was wonderful and inclusive and awesome. And we never did an intro, which is just like part of their thing. I guess they just don't do it. They kind of let everyone introduce themselves organically throughout the week of like being in this sort of creative environment. But I was like, I felt like because of all the training I've had with you, I just felt like it was really nice if we went through and just introduced ourselves and gave people the opportunity to share pronouns if they wanted to. And they were like, we've never done that, but let's try it. And there were two people in the room who were they, them pronouns. And you could see a visible relaxation after that moment and being able to, and I felt closer and more easily able to relate to them right off the bat than if I had never known, what they needed from us socially in that moment. It was like, because it's not a default, and it was nice to just say it's not a default, right. And I should have it in my name. How come you have to change it every time? Is there
no, if you sign in and save it on your profile, it'll
gotta do that.
But that said, we're almost at noon here, so we don't need to take up more of your time, JP. We thank you.
Well, before I bounce, I just realized, like, this whole conversation came out of having chatted with Edward, and I was like, I didn't mention our directory. So for anybody interested in the Queer Vox LGBTQIA+ voiceover directory, our website is going to be broadcasting it shortly. We're updating our website, but you can also find out all the information you need about it on our Instagram at Queer Vox Academy. And basically, it's the same. It works exactly. It's built on the same platform that the PGM directory is built on. Super easy to use, and it's a great way to find queer talent, or if you are queer talent, to submit yourself and to be considered by some amazing casting people.
You guys vet that a little bit, or?
Sorry, what?
Do you guys vet that a little bit?
Vet in terms of like who has access to it?
No, who's on it? Who's on the database? Is it curated, or can anyone sign up?
Anybody can sign up. But we do people can sort by union status. They can sort, there's a whole bunch of different ways that they can be sorted. But we kind of leave the onus upon casting to sort of figure out, like, is this person real or not real, or the one thing we do encourage, like, if a casting person comments and I was like, this person was a bot, or like, or this person is a serial killer from Sheboygan, like, we take that into account, and but otherwise, especially as a queer community, gatekeeping is such a problem. So we try to do it as little as possible.
I love that. That's great. Awesome. So exciting. Thank you for coming, JP. We want to have you back, and when we have lots of people listening. This time we're still just like getting our feet.
I love it. It's super cool. Yeah.
It's been great to have you.
You too. I'll talk to y'all soon.